Welcome to the SmartB Sports Update Podcast, episode something or other.
Episode 18, I think, John.
Almost at 20.
Yeah.
How you going, man?
Yeah, good, thanks, John. A bit of a, we'll get to it a bit later, John. Bit of a slow news day in the NRL yesterday, John. One player charged with murder over the death of an underworld figure. Another player found guilty of assaulting a tradesman with a hammer.
Yeah, Dragon.
So there you go, John. Just very slow news day in the NRL.
There's also the outcry about the national anthem. Don't worry, the NRL.
We got
NRL slides to political outcries through to murder.
we got plenty to get to on that front later on, John.
Let's start with the Cricket World Cup, which is a happy time.
Yes. A good result, John.
Yeah. So after our podcast on Monday, we were discussing Australia versus Sri Lanka and how we would feel on. I forgot to take notes. How we would feel on Thursday. Yeah, I feel happy.
Yeah. So do I, John. I'm happy to run you through some of the details.
Yeah,
from
definitely.
this match. So Sri Lanka
I was watching it actually.
Sri Lanka won the toss and elected to bat, John. Just running through their batting innings, they got to none for 125. Great opening partnership between Path and Nasanka, who got 61. He hit 8 fours, and Kusal Pereira 78. He hit 12 fours. Partnership of 125. They didn't lose a wicket in the first 20 overs, John. At that stage, those of us watching it were going, oh no, is this Australia about to disappear from the World Cup before it's even basically started? Then Sri Lanka progressed to 1 for 157, John, but then the collapse really happened. They lost a staggering 9 for 52 to finish all out for just 209 from 43.3 overs. Charith Asalanka made 25. He was the only Sri Lankan batsman other than the two openers to reach double figures, John. So 8 of the 11 Sri Lankans made single-figure scores with the bat. That's simply not good enough, John.
Yeah, Sri Lanka.
As I mentioned, John, the openers hit 20 boundaries between them. The other 9 batsmen only hit 4 boundaries between them, John. That really tells a story to me. Adam Zampa has come to the party, John. He was the chief destroyer with the ball, taking 4 for 47 from 8 overs. Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc chipped in with 2 wickets each. And your man, the big show, Glenn Maxwell, took a wicket as well. So just looking at that batting innings first up for Sri Lanka, John, Australia did well to restrict them after that really good start.
So we discussed this Pat Cummins not performing actually on numerous occasions. And yeah, as you said, I was watching it, and I was actually watching it. I wasn't like even distracted. Of course, my kids were like, "This is so boring," but I told them to shut up and go do some cartwheels. And it was just I was watching it because it was a horror show. Honestly, to be honest, it was like a car crash I couldn't look away from. Yeah. The fielding positions were poor. There was multiple times in which there should have been a fielder there to catch the ball. Actually, it was just all of the I don't know. It was just so frustrating to watch. And then there was a small adjustment to Dave Warner's position. But it took 20 overs, and then...
Yeah, you could break that Sri Lankan batting innings into 2 brackets. The first 20 overs and the last 30 overs. It was like you were watching 2 different games in one
after
innings.
20 overs, finally, they did some adjustments, and it was just bang. Pat Cummins, really that Pat Cummins ball that Dave Warner caught to get that first out changed everything. And it was kind of like watching it going, man, why don't they move Dave Warner over? Because on multiple occasions the ball went to his position, but he was running for the catch and then just missed it by 2 meters. Multiple occasions throughout that first 20 overs. And I was like, dude, if he takes 3 big steps to the left and starts in that position, they'll get it out. Just 3 big steps, bro. Just come on. Someone walk out there and nudge him, pat him on the butt and move him over. Yeah. And then he finally caught that ball, and I was like, man, he must have taken those 3 big steps. Yeah. And everything collapsed from then. That was good to watch. Like you said, it's 2 different games. And the first one was like a horror show, and the second one was like an awesome, exciting thing to watch. Yeah. Their energy changed when Pat Cummins got that first ball. The whole Australian, it was like they knew from then on they were definitely going to win. And there's a thing in jiu-jitsu actually where it's a very famous fight where there's a 1 second thing where when the coach John Danaher breaks it down. He says, as soon as Cyborg Abu's both feet left the ground for that split second, we knew that we had won the match. And that's what it was like. In that split second when they caught the ball, Australia kind of knew, like, all right, we've got them now. We got their number.
Just a complete shift.
Yeah.
Match turned on its head. Happy to run you through the Australian batting innings as well for that game, John.
Very upset with Dave Warner and Steve Smith there.
Yeah, well, a massive double, like you touched on it, John, massive double blow for Australia early in the run chase. David Warner got out for 11 and Steve Smith out for a duck in the same over, just the fourth over of the innings. Dilshan Madashenko removed both of them with LBWs. Warner looked filthy as he walked off, John. Clearly he wasn't happy with the technology. He was given out on review. I don't know how you argue with the technology, John. And then he said that umpires' stats should be shown on the big screen.
Nobody cares.
Give me a break, John. Like he got out, it was reviewed, and he was dismissed, John. Just suck it up, David.
He's still going on about
seriously.
it today. Last night he was still going on about it. And one of the things about that happens in rugby league sometimes, where coaches, after they get out, they have a bad refs call. They'll be like, well, I don't know why the refs don't have to go for a press conference. You know why? Because nobody would watch it. Nobody wants to. If you put up umpire stats on the screen during cricket, that would be the time that I picked up my phone and started browsing Instagram.
No, but we're not going to put the umpire stats on the big screen just because you got it given out LBW once, David.
It's like nobody.
Seriously.
I mean, but it comes down to they want to count the players and coaching in all sports want the umpires and referees to have accountability, but fans aren't going to give them accountability. You know, there's a lot of times where there are poor referee decisions across all sports, and you remember the decision years later. Years and years later, you'll remember, the Jamie Soward milkman. I don't know who the referee was on the field, and I don't know who the referee was in the box. So it's actually no point. Nobody will care. So it's just a silly tantrum-chucking thing.
And the silly thing about it is he was actually out.
Yeah, he still thinks he wasn't.
It's not as if he wasn't out, and he was wrongly given out. He was, in the end, rightly given out.
Yeah, he still says he wasn't, but, it's... of course, other teams are calling for him to be suspended for a week for poor sportsmanship and stuff like that, suspended for one game. But those two, Smith and Warner, leading into the tournament, they were the shining light in those terrible, terrible matches that Australia kept losing, 5 ODIs in a row they lost, I believe it was, leading into it, yeah? Yeah. But the thing about it was at least Dave Warner and Steve Smith are hitting 50s, 40s, double digits, getting to those half centuries. And this whole tournament, they've been the top three have really been a disappointment for the whole tournament. But at least Mitch Marsh finally did something. Yeah.
I mean, you touched on Smith there, John. I mean, he was a lot more accepting of his fate than Warner. He was out plumb LBW and he just walked off. He wasn't going to burn a review. So to his credit, even though he was dismissed for a duck, he did the team thing and just walked off, didn't burn a review. As you said, John, Smith and Warner both averaging just 21.6 for the tournament. Both only have 65 runs from 3 innings for the tournament. But thankfully, as you touched on, John, the other Australian batsmen all made contributions. Mitch Marsh, 52 from 51, hitting 9 fours before he was run out. Marnus Labuschagne only hit 2 boundaries, but he was the rock of the innings, making 40 from 60 and batted for 100 minutes. Labuschagne, he was involved in 2 crucial partnerships, John. One of 57 with Marsh and one of 77 with Josh Inglis. So very key partnership batting there from Labuschagne. Inglis made his mark on the tournament, John, top scoring for the Aussies with 58 from 59, hitting 6 boundaries. Australia finally have 50s in this tournament, John, thanks to Inglis and Marsh. Maxwell and Stoinis got your man Maxwell, John, the big show himself, guided Australia home. Maxwell hit 31 not out from 21 balls, including 6 boundaries, while Stoinis hit an unbeaten 20 from just 10 balls with 3 boundaries. Madushenko was by far Sri Lanka's best bowler, John, 3 for 38 from 9 overs. Dunath Wellalagi took the other wicket. Australia reaching 5 for 215 from just 35.2 overs, winning by 5 wickets with 88 balls to spare. Zampa was man of the match, John. Australia now at last, John, has a player inside the top 25 run scorers for the tournament. It's Labuschagne with 113 runs. Mitchell Starc and Adam Zampa both in the top 25 wicket takers with 5 wickets each.
Yeah, so that's form. That's the form you want to see, and we hope that it continues. The other match since our last podcast was Netherlands versus South Africa.
Unbelievable, John, just extraordinary. I had to check. I thought there was something wrong with my computer screen at home, John.
I
couldn't believe
I didn't
it.
even bother checking, to be honest, because I knew what the outcome was. And then I arrived to work the next day, and one of the guys, he said, check cricket score.
Yeah.
That was the first thing he said. Not a hello, not a how are you. Check cricket score. So I was like, why? What do I need to check here? And I thought it was...
How much South Africa won?
That's what I thought. South Africa would have been like... Maybe like South Africa was going to be the first team to ever hit a 500 in the World Cup. I opened my phone and went to smartb.com.au and I checked the cricket scores and almost dropped my phone. I almost fainted. I'm so happy for Netherlands. They did so well and so happy that South Africa... so sad, actually. I'm a little bit disappointed that South Africa was the team that had to lose to the Netherlands because South Africa's my smoky for the tournament, but so happy for the Netherlands.
Yeah, 100%, John. So Netherlands, they made 8 for 245 from 43 overs. It was a rain-shortened match, John, down to 43 overs a side. Skipper Scott Edwards made 78 not out from 69 balls. Great captain's knock from Edwards. Yeah. In reply, South Africa bowled out for 207 from 42.5 of those 43 overs. Paceman Logan Van Beek, John, took 3 for 60 from 8.5 overs. Some key wickets from him. Edwards, who's also the wicket-keeper, John, he's the captain and the wicket-keeper of this Netherlands team, took 3 catches to go with his 78 not out. No surprise, John, he was man of the match.
Yeah, and my player to watch for the tournament, Bastille, 2 wickets. Not so good with the bat. I think he was out for 9.
Well done to the Netherlands, though, John. Extraordinary.
It's so,
extraordinary.
After Afghanistan beats England, you just think that, well, that's the shock of the week.
yeah. I mean, you love these underdog stories in a tournament like this, don't you?
South Africa beats England. There won't be another shock upset. Netherlands, hold my beer. It's
David and Goliath result there, John.
Yeah, absolutely cool. It's so awesome for the Netherlands. So then last night...
This was a lot more predictable, John. So New Zealand v Afghanistan.
So the Netherlands versus South Africa was the end result for the end of round 3. So I've got the standings for the end of round 3, which we'll get to.
Yeah, great, yeah.
And then New Zealand versus Afghanistan is the beginning of round 4.
Yeah. So New Zealand made 6 for 288 from their 50 overs, John. Glenn Phillips, top scored with 71.
Pretty low scoring affair there.
Bit modest on their part. So they'd be a bit concerned about that. I mean, they're not going to be measuring themselves on what totals they're getting against Afghanistan. So they'd be worried about that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not playing against, one of the heavyweights. But yeah, Afghanistan never going to run that down. John, all out for 139 from 34.4 overs. Lockie Ferguson and Mitchell Santner, John Santner having a great tournament. Both those bowlers took 3 wickets each in this game. New Zealand won by 149 runs, and Phillips was the man of the match.
So that run rate is miserly. 133. What 133 to say in?
139 from 34.4
that's
overs.
Miserly. Yeah. I would have actually expected with a run count like that New Zealand would have. The end result, New Zealand also would have got Afghanistan out earlier. If they've only hit 139, absolutely miserly run rate there for that many overs, and then of course New Zealand got them all out, and as expected. But that 288 from New Zealand with the bat is. I mean, Afghanistan does have one of the best spin bowlers in the world, right?
The BBL superstar himself,
but
Rashid Khan.
But still,
you still want more.
Like 272, 280 is an average.
You want at least 300 against a team like that, and that's a minimum.
270, 280 when you have 2 top tier teams is an average, and you're like, yep, sweet, that'll be hard for them to run down because our bowling attack is so good, right? But then against someone like Afghanistan, even with someone like Rashid Khan in there, you'd want to be hitting 300, 320. So New Zealand's got a big match this week against India.
Yeah, and what we have to say about New Zealand as well is. It sort of goes both ways, John. We talk about how consistent they are, being the only team to reach the semi-finals in the last 4 World Cups prior to this one. But it goes both ways. On one hand, you go, well, that's great consistency. But on the other hand, you go, yeah, but you didn't win any of them.
Yeah,
so you're not performing in the big games. That's an issue. You know, we're taking New Zealand seriously. We're not being patronising towards it. It's time for them to step up and win one of these World Cups. And if they're only making 288 against Afghanistan, you're going to start to question their credentials when it comes to actually winning this thing.
Yeah, well, they're going to probably have to... If they were to make the final this year, they would probably have to play India. And if they could only hit 288 against Afghanistan... Yeah. You know, even if they get to their 50, India can keep that run rate just as miserly as New Zealand did it to Afghanistan.
You remember the British tennis player Tim Henman, John, how he kept just making the semi-finals of Wimbledon every year?
Yeah.
Well, New Zealand are the Tim Henman of the Cricket World Cup, John.
Exactly. Like, we'll see how New Zealand goes. Like, you know, I mentioned it before the tournament. If New Zealand was able to play a World Cup final in New Zealand... they would do much better. They're much more likely to win. But they'll never do it because New Zealand stadiums aren't big enough for a World Cup final. That's the problem.
Yeah, if they're ever going to host it, they're always going to co-host it with us, and they'll play their games at home, but they'll have to come to Australia to play the big.
That's what happened in 2015. You know, New Zealand basically won and dominated every single team at home because... You know, there was a lot of talk about at the time New Zealand grounds is actually the smallest out of all the major nations. So, you know, you better hope New Zealand gets... They are still the only...
Yeah. I mean, we are, you know, it might have just been a slightly off day. I mean, they still won this game comfortably.
This round has been, this last week has been quite bizarre. But so with the standings, India and New Zealand are at the end of round 3, excluding that New Zealand-Afghanistan game. India and New Zealand top the ladder with 3 from 3 wins. Only undefeated 2 teams in the competition. Followed by South Africa and Pakistan 2 out of 3 wins. England, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Australia, and the Netherlands 1 out of 3 wins each. And then Sri Lanka last 0 from 3. So we can move into the previews because there is India, Bangladesh tonight.
Yeah, I know there've been a couple of shocks, John, but I think that's fairly straightforward.
That's not going to be a shock.
No.
If it is,
let's not get carried away. That match is only going one way, John.
If it is, I would expect the world to end tomorrow as well.
Yes. The apocalypse will come if India get beaten by Bangladesh, John.
So then there's Australia versus Pakistan on Friday.
I've actually got a bit of news on this one, John. Friday, Australia, Pakistan. Yeah, I've got a bit of news, John. So some Pakistan players actually remain under a cloud going into this game after a mystery illness has swept through the team, John.
Probably COVID.
Well, several players reportedly they've been affected by flu and high fever. Abdullah Shafiq, one of the players, he was even in quarantine in his room in Bangalore. So could it be COVID, John? Who knows? I'm not sure. I'm not going to speculate on what it is. But Shaheen Shah Afridi, Saud Shakil, and Zaman Khan, they've also been ill. John, it's believed, though, that it's not dengue fever, though, thankfully, John. So I just want to stress that. That's common in parts of India at this time of the year. Shubman Gill, the Indian batsman, he missed the first 2 games of the World Cup. With that, and prominent commentator Harsha Bogle, he also, I think, suffered from that as well. But Pakistan officials, they've been quoted as saying that the players don't have a viral infection and they're all on the mend, John. So that's good news. Hopefully that doesn't disrupt them too much, John, because we want to be playing their best side.
Or maybe we don't. Just so we can string some wins together. Because Australia beating Pakistan would then put Australia on even tier with Pakistan.
And then I think, John, we play the Netherlands after that. Yes. So it is a key. If Australia can get past Pakistan, then they're going to beat the Netherlands, surely.
Possibly.
Although, but, you would think, John, if we beat Pakistan, then we're favourites against the Netherlands. So every chance we're 3 wins, 2 losses after 5 games. And then things would be looking very differently for Australia, wouldn't they? So this game against Pakistan, crucial for Australia to maintain that momentum from that victory over Sri Lanka, John.
And sorry, just a quick odds check on that. I would say with all of the news coming out with the viruses and stuff like, not viruses, non-viral viruses that are happening, Australia's paying $1.55 right now with PointsBet, and Pakistan's only at $2.60 with TAB.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think there's
some pretty close odds
I
there.
don't want to be, a doomsayer for Australia, John, but gee, there's value in that $2.60 for Pakistan.
I think so.
smartb.com.au.
Because Pakistan, as I said, Pakistan's won 2 from 3. Australia's sitting at 1 from 3. We'll bet with your head not over it, but yeah, it's not a bad idea to put a sneaky on there. So then on Saturday there's Netherlands versus Sri Lanka.
Yeah. I'll be interested. Do you mind just checking the odds on this game, John? I'll be interested in them.
Here's the thing, right? Strangely, with Sri Lanka sitting 0 from 3 and Netherlands having just beaten South Africa, Sri Lanka's heavy favourites at $1.66 with BetRight, while Netherlands is at $4.70 with SportsBet. Now, this is the closest odds that Netherlands have been all tournament.
Yeah.
We've discussed it multiple times. Netherlands always at that $12.14 mark. That's another one that may, like with Sri Lanka's form, because Netherlands haven't been losing badly as well. They've played some top teams and haven't lost badly. So if we look at
I'll tell you what, there is value in that $4.70 if you ask me, John. Gamble responsibly, everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Like so you look at the teams that Netherlands have played, right? So they beat South Africa obviously last week. And then
that's the thing,
they haven't been losing.
Sri Lanka's been just ordinary.
They got beat by New Zealand. New Zealand's one of the top teams. They got beat by Pakistan, who's currently sitting 3rd or 4th. They're not, losing badly against and Pakistan. Sri Lanka is the worst team in the tournament right now. So.
Like $4.70 for the Netherlands, John. I'd be inclined to maybe throw a sneaky $20 on that myself.
Yeah, but I think so. Like we'll see what happens on Saturday, but it could be the Netherlands gets 2 in a row, and then Netherlands might be the sneaky to win the tournament.
Yeah, that's $20, John, not $200. Gamble definitely. Responsibly, yeah.
And then the end of round 4 is on Saturday as well, which is England versus South Africa.
Yeah.
Now this one is really actually hard to call. The odds are. England is at $1.98 and South Africa is at $2.15, both with BetRight as the best odds on smartb.com.au.
I suspect if South Africa are the underdogs because they lost to the Netherlands. I think if South Africa had performed the way we expected them to against the Netherlands, I think they would have gone in favourites to this game. Yeah. But that shock defeat to the Netherlands has made England the favourites in that game, John.
England lost to Afghanistan, so it's... I just don't know. This is so hard to call because both teams' previous...
This is the thing. The thing that concerns me with South Africa, John, is... we had really high hopes and they started the tournament so well, but they've got... Historically, their record in big games is atrocious. It's so bad. And so when they drop a game to a team like the Netherlands... You start to get worried and go, well, is this the old... I thought the old South Africa were gone, John. I thought this was a new South Africa. But now is the old South Africa creeping back in here?
Well, yeah, I think this game, more than any other game so far, is South Africa's decisive match. And South Africa needs to get it to show that they aren't the old South Africa, and that was a hiccup. But then England needs to get it because they have to show that losing to Afghanistan
it's sort of appropriate that these two teams clash at this stage, John.
Perfect time.
Gives them an opportunity to redeem themselves after those shock defeats, John.
So the end of the round is going to be massively... I think there's going to be a massive shake-up on the table. First match of next round is on Sunday with India versus New Zealand. Obviously, India heavy favourites.
Yeah.
Both of these teams, that's $1.41 versus $3. Both of these teams are undefeated, the only 2 undefeated teams in the comp. And so obviously one of them is going to lose their streak. I think New Zealand can win it, to be honest. We just talked about how they should have done better against Afghanistan. But again, $3 on New Zealand is not a... It's not a terrible bet.
I guess the thing for me, John, is we talked about New Zealand only making $2.88 against Afghanistan. Sorry. India have chased down big totals in
everyone.
Really quick time, and done it in really quick time in this tournament. Chasing down,
and before.
270s, 280s in 30, 35 overs. New Zealand only make 288 against Afghanistan in their whole innings. That's where I give India the nod here, John. Just that ability to score big with the bat. I think that's gonna get them over the line in this one. John.
It is a New Zealand are obvious favourites for obvious reason, but gambling is always a gamble.
India favourites.
Gambling is always a gamble. So the net run rate at the end of round 3 was because India's just been able to run down those things so quickly. Their net run rate was plus 1.82 versus New Zealand's 1.6. And then with New Zealand's latest win, they did jump to 1.9. Yeah, it's not hard to call, but there is still New Zealand still has a chance to get there.
Yeah, I mean you never know. New Zealand's Mitchell Santner, Lockie Ferguson are on fire. If they catch fire and can somehow tear through India's batting, then that gives them a chance, obviously. But yeah, I can see why India are the
clear.
I wouldn't say heavy. I mean, they're clear favourites to win, and you can see.
I think it'll also come down to who bats first. To be honest, I think if New Zealand have bat first, there's all that fear that India will be able to run down your whatever you put up.
You sort of think, to be honest, you sort of think New Zealand are better off bowling first.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because with India, they look like they can run down anything. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Chasing just doesn't faze them.
We've discussed it multiple times. Their run rates and, the estimated potential future of doubling the score at 30 overs has been like 350s, 370s, that kind of thing, like ridiculous. So, and, they're running people down in just over 30 overs.
Yeah.
So, what was it? Australia was 199 and India ran it down in like 32 overs or something like that. So, yeah, New Zealand might be better off bowling first, and then just trying to keep India down. And
I think so. If I was New Zealand and I win the toss, I'm bowling first, John.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the round. That's the cricket.
Big wrap of the Cricket World Cup.
Yeah,
there,
New Zealand currently sitting first because obviously they've played an additional game. Sri Lanka sitting last because they've won nothing. And just last thing on that India-New Zealand game, if Netherlands can beat South Africa, then New Zealand can beat India.
that's true, John. And same with Afghanistan beating England as well. Yeah.
Never know what's going to happen.
No. Yeah, you never know, do you?
So we'll move on to Rugby League and we'll do a quick run through...
Do we want to just run through the Rugby World Cup semis first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you want to bring the odds up for each game, John, but Argentina v New Zealand, Saturday, 6 a.m. Sydney time. So, England v South Africa. So they're playing each other in the Cricket World Cup and the Rugby World Cup in a very close proximity to each other, John.
Yeah,
England v South Africa, Sunday, 6 a.m. Sydney time.
So it's probably most likely going to be New Zealand versus South Africa in the final.
Oh, gee, New Zealand 106,
to
Argentina 760. Wow. Okay.
And then South Africa $1.13 to England's $5.10. England started the week at $4.90 and blown out to $5.10. All those rugby union odds are with Colossal Bet. They're the best odds. So if you go to smartb.com.au, you can see the best current odds. You'd have to say that New Zealand will get this, and South Africa will get this.
Yeah, and that'll be the final the week
Mark
after.
Checker is the coach for Argentina. So if he manages to pull off this upset, Australia should, throw $14 million at him, try and get him back to coach Australia. But
I have to be honest, John. There've been bigger fish to fry this week, but I noticed Eddie Jones was, trying to explain himself, and that's just a whole mess, isn't it? Did he talk to Japan? Did he not?
He talked to Japan.
Who knew what when? It's one of those, isn't it, John?
Well, they need to finish their review. So we'll just, because there is a lot of rugby league news, so we'll go through the Pacific Championships. Kiwis versus Samoa on Saturday.
4 p.m. Eden Park, Auckland. John, happy to run you through.
What time is that here?
Yeah, so it's another one of those ones, John, where they don't tell you whether that's 4 p.m. local time or 4 p.m. Sydney time.
NRL.com. Yeah, so it's NRL.com is localised, so it's 4 p.m. our time.
I think it would be 4 p.m. our time because I think the games are on Channel 9, John, and they've got to get to their news at 6 o'clock.
Well,
so,
for the Kiwis in New Zealand, it's going to be the 7 p.m. So your Kiwis versus Samoa.
Yeah, happy to run you through some details for this one. So it's the first game of the tournament for New Zealand, obviously, John.
Weird tournament.
Samoa coming off that 26-point loss to the Kangaroos. Samoa went further than the Kiwis at last year's World Cup, of course, John. So, that's something to hang their hat on for sure. Last time these two teams played was at the 2017 World Cup, John, with New Zealand winning 38-8 at Mount Smart Stadium. So Panthers enforcer James Fisher-Harris takes over as Kiwi captain, John. He'll lead the forwards along with Moses Leota, the grand final hero himself, Britton Nakora and Joseph Tarpany. Warriors superstar Shans, Nickel Clockstad gets the nod at fullback, John. Joey Manu will be in the centres, so too will Matt Tomoko on his test debut. Hooker Farmanu Brown and bench forwards Leo Thompson and Griffin Neame will also make their Kiwi debuts. So 4 debutants in total picked by coach Michael Maguire, John, the possibly, seemingly, certainly next New South Wales Origin coach himself.
We'll know in a month.
Yes. Storm playmaker Jerome Hughes and the Eels Dylan Brown will be in the halves, John. For Samoa, Marion Seve comes into the side replacing his Storm teammate young Tonu Mapea. Samoa fullback Suafa Longu, John, he had a great test debut against Australia. 176 run metres, a line break and 11 tackle breaks. The Kiwis are 4-0 in tests against Samoa. 144-50 is the cumulative score across the 4 games, so a big margin there, no surprise. Kiwi winger Jermaine Asako topped the NRL try-scoring and point-scoring list with the Dolphins this season, John. First player since Mal Meninga with Canberra in 1990 to do that double. Hugh McGann holds the record for most tries in a test match for New Zealand with 6 against Papua New Guinea at Carlaw Park in Auckland in 1983, John.
Like, you can't go past New Zealand's strike at all in any way, shape or form. You've got Charles Nickel-Cockstad, who I've talked about before, his Warriors went on a dominant streak and got to the finals on the back of that. His form. Jerome Hughes in form. And then you chuck in the 2 Browns. Throw it out the back, and then out the backs of Joey Manu and Jermaine Asako. Look,
I think in that world, we've got to call it as it is, John. In that World Cup last year, Samoa were lucky to run into England in the semi-finals. If they had a run into New Zealand in the semis, they don't make that final last year.
Yeah, I don't think England is a Tier 1 team anymore. I talked about it last week. They should reform Great Britain, and then they'll be a Tier 1 team. That was the main reason they were a Tier 1 team.
I think there was an issue with... There's something wrong with those Rugby League world rankings, John. There was some issue with the rankings that saw Australia and New Zealand run into each other in the semis in the World Cup last year. Really
that was due to playing. That was the whole thing. That was due to playing, the amount of times they played, because Australia didn't play Test for a while. And that's one of the things with all world rankings, right? You don't play, you don't get points, so you don't get ranked, so you lose your ranking. And then, that's why Tonga is overplaying England right now, because Tonga and England don't want to lose their world ranking, so they have to play.
Yeah, it's just one of those sort of common sense scenarios, isn't it, John?
In combat sports, you have pound for pound, which is determined by... Pound for pound's also nonsense, but it's determined by media votes, usually. So there's these 2 different things you do, like what is the real ranking versus what is the ranking based on playing. Samoa's still not classed as a Tier 1 squad, a Tier 1 team. They're a Tier 2 team. So, in theory, the Kiwis will get this and get this comfortably. It can't be the Kiwis versus Australia in the final, right? Because of the weird tournament. I don't know.
No, I think it can. This one, I think, so New Zealand, Australia, and Samoa are in one group. So it's just a 3-nation event. And then the others, Fiji, Cook Islands and Papua New Guinea are in the other group. So it's sort of separated into 2 groups, this Pacific Championship, John. It's not they're not all. The 6 countries are not all together.
Oh yeah, that's right. So
they're
it'll
separate.
be I think the top 2 of Group 1 versus the top 2 of Group 2, and then it will be Australia versus New Zealand in the final, most likely.
It'd be a real surprise if that's not the final, John.
Yeah, and then Fiji versus Cook Islands is on Sunday, same time, 4 p.m. I can see a lot of points in the Fiji team, like a lot, especially because PNG put, 46 on Cook Islands. PNG put 46.
PNG.
And so Cook Islands have made some changes to their team to accommodate for that and injuries. But I see Fiji getting this one for sure.
Yeah, so that's on Sunday at 4 p.m. at Sandhurst National Football Stadium in Port Moresby, John. Sunia Taruva scored a double on Test debut for Fiji against PNG in 2022, and he's got 3 tries in 5 tests for Fiji, so he's one to watch out for here, John. Fiji leads 6-5 in head-to-head meetings between these teams. They last played way back in 2009 in Port Moresby, John.
Wow.
That's a long time between tests, isn't it? Interestingly, John, Aquila Uarte, a bit of a blast from the past, holds the record for most test tries for Fiji with 14.
Captain, what was he? Mr. Potato Head. I always loved that guy, but I always hated that he had to have a cry. He never got a quick play the ball because he always had to have a cry at every tackle. He would get to a position where he could get quick play the ball, but have to spend 5 minutes crying first. Just play the ball, bro. He was a cracker, great try scorer. So I'm not surprised that he holds the record. Actually, I can't see Fiji losing this one. To be honest, they just have so much strike across the park when compared to Cook Islands. Their team obviously doesn't compare to New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah.
But they've just got guys like, Mike Kasivo, Taruva, Waka Blake, Ravalawa. Like, their outside backs are way better in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks to me, John, like, Fiji and PNG are the 2 strong sides in that group, and the Cook Islands are the weak link.
Yeah.
And just like Samoa are the weak link in that group with Australia and New Zealand, John. So
I'll watch them. We'll see how they go. If they're boring like they were last week. This weekend also has on Sunday it has the UFC 294, but that's at 5 a.m. So I might end up falling asleep in the middle of the Fiji versus Cook Islands.
Yeah.
Again.
See how you go, John.
Yeah. The Pacific Championship women, on the other hand, looked really exciting. Kiwis versus Tonga on Saturday. So now, last week I asked why they didn't have the same draw. Actually, the women's comp has different teams in it. That's why.
Yeah.
So Kiwi versus Tonga on Saturday. New Zealand's moved some positions around. I think Ricky Henry, their coach, is using this tournament as a place to tinker and play to prepare for the World Cup.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think he's taking it super seriously.
Yeah.
He's moved Shanice Parker from centre to fullback. He's brought in Tyler Nathan Wong at 5'8" from the bench. She was on the bench in the first match.
Yeah.
And then because of the eligibility and the limited pool, there's a bunch of players like Tiana Panitani, she's actually played for the Jillaroos, now playing for New Zealand. Quite a few women's state of origin teams in the New Zealand team. So again, I think Kiwi fans should get this. But if they don't, it won't be because they're not a better team. It's because Ricky Henry is tinkering with the team and prepping for World Cup. I know it's 2 years away.
Because the thing is, last year's World Cup was actually called the 2021 Rugby League World Cup, but it was obviously delayed due to the COVID pandemic, so the next one will be 2025.
So this is what, I think that's what these tournaments, like Australia has to do it, and to some extent New Zealand has to do it way less in the men's than someone like the New Zealand women's team. So we know who we're going to pick, We know Nathan Cleary's going to be available and we're going to pick him and stuff like that for the World Cup. Whereas the women's need to tinker theirs because they have way less experience, way less history, smaller competition. So that's
fair enough. You got bigger fish to fry.
I like it. To be honest, I like it. That's what you should do with these tournaments. New Zealand had a massive improvement last week against Australia. As they lost by 50 points or whatever in the World Cup final last year. They knew they had to do something. They made sweeping changes and ended up losing 16-10. Was it 16-10 or 16-6?
Last week I think it was 16-10.
And individual brilliance by Tamika Upton and the combination with Ali Bringshaw was the difference.
Yeah.
So New Zealand are on the right path, I think.
Yeah.
PNG versus Cook Islands is on Sunday. This is actually in PNG, so I think the crowd will be amazing.
Yeah,
That'll
absolutely.
be the best thing.
That'll be good to watch, John.
And there's a bunch of players in both the squads that are State of Origin players, previous Kiwi players, stuff like that. So and Australian players. So this will be a fun watch too. I'm more excited by the women's than I am by the men. I hope we have a really good game with the PNG.
Yeah, hopefully just some entertaining footy for the fans, John.
Yeah. So we can get to news in Rugby League.
Oh, there's just a little bit of news in Rugby League at the moment, John.
I don't even know where to start.
Just a bit.
Introduction of the 5-minute sin bin possibly for next year.
Okay. Well, do you want to start with that, John?
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, John, because I think that the whole idea of having a 10-minute sin bin is it's meant to hurt. It's meant to be. It's meant to act as a deterrent to teams committing professional fouls, and it's meant to be a harsh punishment. That's what it's there for. If you go 5 minutes, you're sort of having a bit each way, and I'm not sure. The problem if it's only 5 minutes is teams will roll the dice on it. They'll test the patience of the referee on it because they'll go, oh well, it's only 5 minutes. We can just bluff it for 5 minutes, back ourselves to hold out for 5 minutes with 12 men. The 10-minute sin bin is 10 minutes because it's meant to hurt, John.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things about it as well because some of the suggestions is player replacement for the sin bin as well. It's basically a free
player replacement?
Yeah.
Well, why even have the sin bin there?
Go off for 5 minutes and bring another player on. I can see Wayne Bennett straight away using that as a free substitution.
No. This is a problem, John. Coaches are having too much influence.
Yeah, I hate the...
I bet this has all come from coaches wanting this. They've got too much influence on the governing body, the NRL.
Well,
the NRL's got to put the foot down and go, no, it's staying at 10 minutes. We're not changing it to 5 minutes.
The rules committee that exists where they discuss these things is filled with current coaches.
Yeah, there's coaches. It's littered with coaches, John.
And so they shouldn't have current coaches. They shouldn't have current players. So I actually heard this on Tuesday, and then straight away I was like, oh man, I'm so sick of hearing this. And it comes from teams, like media personalities, whose teams were affected at some point throughout the year by a 10-minute sin bin. It's always like that.
And you look at it and go, well, okay, you don't want to get a player sin bin? All right, well, don't commit the professional foul then. That's one way you could keep all your players on the field.
You know, when you hear their justifications for it, it'll be like, in round 7, blah, 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 committed like a soft professional foul and got 10 minutes and it really affected the outcome of the game.
So, no, it was a professional... Yes. Yeah, that's what it's meant to do. That's why it's there.
I agree. That's what happened.
That's why punishments exist in society.
So, you know what the solution was? Not commit a professional foul.
That's an idea.
It's real, and because then the actual response to that is not introduce a 5-minute sin bin. The actual response to that is, in round 7, there were these 7 other games for the week where no one committed a professional foul and the game wasn't affected by a sin bin.
Yeah.
That's what the actual thing.
So you want a solution? Don't commit a professional foul to not get your player sin bin. There you go.
And I think I fully believe you can actually use that Super League Grand Final as a classic example of why the sin bin is perfect. Because Catalans probably would have won if they hadn't have committed 2 professional fouls that got 2 of their players off the field. And yes, it actually affected the outcome of the game. But if they hadn't have committed those professional fouls, they should learn. Every other team should learn. Every other team should look at that and go, don't commit professional fouls. Don't get yellow carded, don't get sin bin. It's not a matter of changing it to 5 minutes because, coaches will exploit it. You need a quick rest, right? When you get the ball, or just before you get the ball, whatever, get a player off with like 5 minutes to go for the half.
Yeah.
You get a rest.
That's the thing, John. The 5 minutes, it's not a long enough amount of time to hurt the team who suffers the sin binning. And so they'll just roll the dice on it. They'll go, oh, well, And that's the thing. Once you bring in the 5-minute sin bin, John, the 10-minute sin bin will, even if it's left in the rule book that you can still use it, that will never be used. So the 10-minute sin bin will disappear. It'll just be 5-minute sin bins from now on. And teams will just back themselves. They'll test out the referee. But they shouldn't do it, John.
I don't think they should, and I don't want to see it because it will be an experiment that will basically ruin the quality of the competition. And the one thing I actually hate most about rugby league more than any other sport I follow is that rugby league seems to be the only sport that changes the rules in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And what I have a real fear that will happen. They'll see ridiculousness from the first few weeks of 5-minute sin binnings and then have to go, you know what, this was a mistake, let's change it.
That's the thing, John. Like, we bag rugby union all the time, and we have good reason to bag rugby union. There's a lot of content there, isn't there? There's no shortage of content. But one thing I would say about them is, in rugby union, and especially in the Northern Hemisphere, whether you like them or not, the rules are the rules, John.
Yeah.
And people live with it. Rugby league is the opposite in that regard, just changing the rules to placate the coaches all the time.
So one guy I saw about that, changing the rules in the middle of the tournament, said, I saw a comment on the internet once, because it was a few years ago when in the middle of the year they changed what downward pressure meant.
Yeah.
And so 1 week to the next, it was when Luke Cavell was playing, actually. 1 week to the next, Luke Cavell brushed a ball and scored a try, and then next week someone else brushed a ball and didn't get a try. It was ridiculous. Exactly the same footage. And this is middle of the season.
Yeah.
And somebody said at the time, like, it would be like in boxing if in the third round they changed the rules.
Yeah.
Like, it changes everything.
There's an argument, John, that the rule book should just be like a covenant, never gets changed.
They don't need
because the rules are the rules.
The problem with rugby league is they keep tinkering with the rules year to year, and they can never get it right. And if they just left it alone, people would come to accept it. But because they keep changing it, they've set this precedent where fans, media personalities, everyone constantly think like, I didn't like that, so we should change the rules.
Yeah.
But if you look at other games, where yes, there are some rules changes every now and then.
Yeah.
But they're not like a rugby league. I swear to God, they have more rules changes. Like, it's just beyond ridiculous. Just don't worry about it.
And John, for every action, there's a reaction as well. Like, to give you one example, one rule change that was brought in a number of years ago now was this: if you kick the ball dead, then the team gets a 20-metre restart with an extra tackle, the seventh tackle rule. So that rule was only introduced to stop. I think it was introduced because of Billy Slater.
And Jared Hayne.
Their kick returns were so good that the league got sick of kickers just kicking over their head, accepting that the ball's gone dead and we'll just set our defensive line at the 30 with the restart on the 20. Yeah. That's why that rule was brought in. But now we have a situation where it stopped teams from putting any attacking kicks in with the fear of giving away the extra tackle. So now teams are happy to even just hand the ball over and not attack on the last tackle with fear of giving away that extra tackle on the 20. So every time you change a rule, there'll be some reaction to it, John.
Well, that's exactly right.
And that might hinder the game.
The coaches will adjust the way they play to accommodate for the rule. And it was for Billy Slater and Jared Hayne. They were the two names that they kept bringing up. And again, it came from the media. I want to see Jared Hayne running the ball back. Yeah, I do want to see Jared Hayne running the ball back. So you know what you should do to get Jared Hayne running the ball back? Get your forwards to pressure the kicker more so the kicker doesn't have time to kick the ball out. Not change the rule to let Jared Hayne run the ball back. And it's the same with the
Get Jared Hayne or Billy Slater to move further back and catch that ball before it goes dead.
And it's the same as the tackle count restart. That I've always, because they made the tackle count restart because the media said, I want to see more attacking football. What I actually want to see, and I know like all fans want to see, everyone I've ever spoken to wants to see better quality football. Yeah. Not football lent in one direction based on the rules giving it to the team. If some teams can't attack very well, again, like they use the exciting players and stuff, and they're like, the scrums are slowing down the game and stuff like that. Teams need to adjust their tactics and the way they play to accommodate for the rules, like they do in every other sport.
Yeah, 100%.
Not change the rules of the game because the media complains. Certain media personalities
complain,
so they can unlock certain players to get more highlights. Get the coaches to coach their team better to unlock those players to get more highlights. Don't change the rules.
100%.
So I don't want this 5-minute sin bin. Obviously we have no say over what the NRL does, but they always go on about this is one of the other things I really hate about NRL media more than any other sport. They always say this is what the fans want, but they never ever talk to the fans, man. They just don't. They fully don't. If they wanted to know what the fans want, they should go to Reddit and read what the fans want.
And that's the thing, like, the thing is, John, you can't let the fans run the game, you know. Like, the governing body has to run the game. There's an old saying that's, you know, if you're in charge of the game and you let the fans run the game, soon you'll be sitting with them, you know. You'll be... the leaders have to lead, John, you know.
Yes.
Don't There's too much consultation and
that's one of the things that happens with video games. They have a term in video game, it's a vernacular where the video game launches and then it becomes a community project. And it's because the developers listen too much to the people on their forums making suggestions and then start changing the game to suit what they want. And then what's the thing? You build a camel.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't bring in the 5-minute sin bin. I think it will change the game too much. And again, just stop changing the game. Make the teams play the game better.
Yeah.
That's that on the 5-minute sin bin.
Yes.
I don't know where you want to go from here.
John,
do we want to build up to murder?
Should we? I think we'll go to this Kangaroos players not singing the anthem,
and
then I think we'll finish with the murders and hammer attacks later.
Rules,
alleged
politics,
murders and alleged
rules,
hammer
politics,
attacks.
assault, murder. Sounds good. So this is the thing. In the national anthem, the 4 players didn't sing the national anthem.
Yeah.
And then former Test captain Max Krilich came out and said players shouldn't be allowed to play if they don't sing the national anthem. Playing for Australia is the greatest honour and you should sing the national anthem and so on. And of course, Latrell Mitchell has to get involved and comment and say, shut up.
I didn't see that coming, John.
Yes.
Who would have thought that one came out of left field, didn't it?
What was it? You can't expect players to use their voice if they don't have a voice. Then Mal Meninga had to defend his players and say, man, it's a personal preference. I just want to preface this whole conversation with, I don't have skin in this game. I honestly don't care, and I wish it wasn't news.
Yeah, okay. So just to elaborate, John, it was Payne Haas, Katoni Staggs, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow and Selwyn Cobbo. They're the players we're talking about. So, the quotes from Mal Meninga, as you said, John, I think it's personal preference. I think it's up to the individual. These players also have the freedom to make a decision. That's true, John. They do have freedom to make that decision. But, I mean, the coach himself also has the freedom to talk to these players and say, to just sit down and talk to them, not in a, no, we're not going to get heated about this, John. Yeah. But the coach has the option to sit down with them and go, well, you didn't sing the national anthem. So do you, and just say, look, do you really want to play? Because if you don't, that's fine. We've got plenty of other players we can pick.
Well, do you want to represent, rather than do you want to play, do you want to represent Australia?
Yeah, do you want, that's what do you want to represent Australia? And look, that's fine. Look, perfectly, no fireworks in the discussion. If you don't, that's okay. This is the Australian Rugby League team. We've got so many other players.
Yeah, 100%.
John, we could name 2 more teams full of Australian players that would do the job in these games.
So one of the things about this conversation is always everyone has to get involved in changing the mind. It has to be so Max Krilich wants to change the mind of those players. Latrell Mitchell wants to change the mind of Max Krilich. Mal Meninga is more sitting on I'm a mad fence sitter in these things. I get it, John. I'm not trying to be provocative when I'm saying absolutely.
It's just perfectly
I don't care either way. I've been at the first time I ever went to international match in any sport, I was overwhelmed by the crowd and stuff singing the national anthem, and it was a powerful type of thing. And I understand there's opinions and politics, and we just had the vet referendum and all that kind of stuff. But exactly what you're saying, rather than trying to change the mind, Mal Meninga is with anyone in the Australian, actually, doesn't even have to be Mal Meninga if he wants to sit on the fence. The people in the ARL can draw a line in the sand if they want. It's entirely up to them. and then say to the players,
Yeah.
this is part of playing for Australia.
Yeah.
If you don't want
Yeah.
to do it, don't play for Australia.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
have to go to them and say, this is part of playing for Australian and you're un-Australian if you don't do it and you should
Yeah,
think
no,
how
no,
I
no,
think.
no, not
it's
at
just
all.
like, man, this is it.
Not
Like,
at all.
it's fine. And but again, the ARL can, if they want to, come out and say, part of playing Australia is not singing the national anthem, or part of part of playing for Australia is choosing either way. The problem with it is, like I said, it's like everyone has to change their mind and force
it's up to the Australian Rugby League to come out and give an indication of what their expectations of the players are in this situation, John.
I think you can go to Israel Folau and Rugby Union as a prime example, okay, of exactly what I'm talking about. Israel Folau obviously posted social media anti-homosexuality rhetoric on social media based on his religious choices and stuff, okay? Fair enough, man. Believe what you want to believe. I have this saying that I say to my kids when they argue with me, believe what you want to believe even though you're wrong. Like, I always have this, like, believe what you want to believe. I believe fully that everyone can believe whatever they want to believe. And the correct way to, the Joe Rogan thing, the way to counteract bad speech is with good speech. But Rugby Union sat Israel Folau down and said, this is what Rugby Union stands for. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
We're not going to try and change your mind.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And he said, I want to play Rugby Union. And then he did it again. So they went, we told you. If you don't want to do it, now you've showed us you don't want to do it, so get out.
Yeah.
And then when he wanted to come to Rugby League again, Rugby League, the NRL sat him down and said, this is what the NRL stands for. If you don't want to do it, we're not going to let you do it. And he said, well, I don't want to do it. And they said, well, we're not going to let you do it.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
They set out the ground rules with him, and that's their right,
So the ARL...
That's their game.
The ARL has to set the ground rules.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do it, man, just don't do it. And everybody should just accept their belief. Everybody should accept everyone's beliefs, even if they're wrong. I'm not saying any of these guys are wrong, right? I'm just saying even if they're wrong. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't play. Go and try and change the minds of people with civil discourse. But don't make Rugby League and the Rugby League international tests about this.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
One thing I would say, though, John, is let's say, they sit down and have this conversation with the players. Or let's say the ARL have this conversation with the 4 players and they say, look, it's okay, we don't expect you to sing the anthem. If they come to that conclusion, that's fine, John. But what I would expect as an Australian Rugby League supporter, if they're taking that field, I'd expect 100% commitment from those players in the game itself.
Yep.
100% commitment. And if I'm not seeing that, if we don't get that from them, then I'd expect that the Australian Rugby League would drop them for their lack 100%. Of effort. I would expect... The anthem's one thing, John. Go whichever way you want on it. I mean, it's not a very good anthem anyway. We could have a much better anthem anyway. That's a separate argument anyway, John. But go whichever way you want on making players sing the anthem or not. But when kickoff happens, I want 100% commitment from those players. Unequivocal as an Australian Rugby League supporter.
It's like, are they there to play for Australia or are they there to get paid to play for Australia? Because every Rugby League player ever in the history of Rugby League and, man, in the history of sport talks solely at the end of before their career and after their career about how the pride they have in the jerseys that they play for. And how much of an honour it is to play for Australia and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. Are these guys there to play for Australia? And it's the same with any country. Are those guys there to play for New Zealand? You can see the fit. Like, New Zealand doesn't have these problems because they have things like they sing the national anthem in 2 languages. Every New Zealand team, their national anthem actually is in 2 languages, And New Zealand have the haka. You see the passion in the haka. Every single... I can unequivocally, that's a word, right? Yep.
Unequivocally?
Yeah, unequivocally. Yeah. With 100% certainty, say that every New Zealand player is there to play for New Zealand.
Yeah.
100%, no matter what.
And that's the other argument with it, John, is, and you got to bring it up, our country, as you've touched on, Nobody really sings the anthem passionately. People just give it lip service in this country. We're not like the Americans who they've got their hand on their heart, John. These Pacific Island teams, the Samoans, PNG,
they cry.
They'll cry, they'll have their hand on their heart. Australian players just give it lip service as well. So that's a point that has to be mentioned. I mean, does it really matter whether you're singing the anthem or not if you're not even singing it with any gusto? If you're just giving it lip service and going, advanced Australia fair, and showing no enthusiasm, well, does that in itself, does that really matter then, John? I mean...
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can't tell from the anthem whether they're there to play for Australia when it's Australia. With other countries, you can tell that they're there to play for the country based on the anthem. Yes, the Samoan players were in tears. The crowd was amazing. The Aussies are like,
ARL, take whatever position you want on it. It's up to you. It's up to the ARL.
I wish they would just take a position.
Yeah, take your position. It is what it is. But every player, once the game starts, kick-off happens, I would expect 100% commitment.
Passion in the jersey and passion in play.
And if you're not prepared to give that, then don't play for Australia. Yeah. I don't care who you are.
There are other countries that will take most players.
Yeah. If your grandmother's born in PNG, you can play for PNG.
Those ones counter. Yes, you can say what you want. Jack de Belin probably, I don't know, isn't playing for PNG because he has pride in being Papua New Guinea.
If you went on holiday to Fiji once when you were 6 years old, you can play for Fiji, John.
But he's obviously there for the paycheck. But there would also be some inkling of I would hope try and build the international game, and all of those guys that he's playing with would be happy to have him because they get that experience of playing with Jack de Belin. So from the PNG Rugby League organisation and the coaching point, it's a good idea to bring Jack de Belin into the squad. But Australia is different because Australia is not a thing where it's like, oh, you didn't get picked for another country, so come and play for Australia, right? Australia is Australia. It's Australian rugby. It's the best team in the world. It's not a opinion. It's a fact. They're the best team in the world. They have been for a long time. They only pick the best of the best, and they should only pick people who want to play for them with 150,000% passion for playing for them.
Absolutely, John.
And if they don't want to sing the national anthem, don't sing the national anthem. But the ARL need to say, it's all right. You don't have to sing the national anthem.
Yeah, as you said, come out and take a position on this.
I know they don't want to because of politics.
Don't just hope that it goes away. It just looks it's such weak leadership.
It's never going to go away because it's been happening for years, and every year we have internationals, we have this problem.
It's the problem in 2023, John, with society in general. People are just too scared to upset people, offend people, and so they just won't take a position on anything, and it's a real problem with society.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a mad fence sitter, like I said. But it's actually not through lack of not because I don't have an opinion. It's through a complete lack of passion or care factor about anything in life.
You make a fair point, John. People, as you said, trying to change other people's position on it. Yeah. There is no real right answer. Stop trying to change the minds of other people.
If you want to change their minds, engage in civil discourse. Don't come out and bag each other in the media, former test captains saying these guys shouldn't be allowed to play for Australia, so Latrell having to come in and be vocal about it, and then Mal Meninga having to make a statement. Not a single person from the ARL has made a statement, from what I know, as of today. So, that's the politics. Let's move into assault.
Now we're moving to the...
Have you got the Dragon statement, the non-statement?
I've got some details on the incident, John, if you want me to run you through that.
Yeah, then we can finish with the Dragon statement.
Yeah. So St George Illawarra playmaker John Junior Amone, he's looking down the barrel of a jail term, John, after he was found guilty of arming himself with a hammer and chasing a tradesman off a roof during a dispute in Wollongong last year.
Over parking.
Yeah, so Amone on Wednesday was found guilty in Wollongong local court of a string of charges, including assault relating to an incident outside their family home in Warrawong last November. So Amone's playing future is now under a cloud, John. The Dragons have stood him down indefinitely, and I know there is, I guess, football issues with this, John, because I think he was going to be in the halves for your Dragons, wasn't he? And now they're going to have to look at other options.
They can look at
But anyway,
options.
John, I think the seriousness of this situation, it sort of outdoes any football ramifications.
Yeah,
I would have thought.
as a Dragons fan, I miss the days where the issues, the off-field behaviour with the Dragons were being too loud in a KFC or Trent Barrett doing push-ups on a bar.
Yeah.
So the statement that the Dragons have released, because, they get their media people in, the Dragons acknowledge the guilty verdict handed down to player Talatau Amone in Wollongong Court today in relation to an assault last November. As a result of this outcome, Amone has been stood down from all club activities until further notice. The club will make no further comment at this time as court proceedings continue. I don't know what his potential jail sentence is.
Yeah, that's a matter for the courts to decide, isn't it, John?
But yeah, it all came down to something to do with somebody parking on a median strip, and it was a case of mistaken identity and all that kind of stuff.
I guess if he goes to jail, John, that's one less halves option for the Dragons, right?
Well, even if he does, because they're supposed to be a stand down, all right? And I'm all for forgiveness of life. That's another thing I hate about modern society. I can go back and find a tweet from 15 years ago and still bring it up that prevents somebody from whoever, I can't remember who it was, from Kevin Hart couldn't host the Oscars.
Yeah, that's overdoing it, isn't it, John?
But you do have to put, like, there's guys out there like Matt Lodge that they let play. So if Talatau Amone gets a light sentence, and I think Matt Lodge is my poster boy of if Matt Lodge can play, then anyone can play, to be honest. You had things like the NRL is super inconsistent with stuff. We go all the way back to Brett Stewart being stood down for 4 weeks so many years ago, which at the time, I'm a big Rugby League fan. At the time, every single person I knew who had never watched a Rugby League game in their life had to ask me for my opinion on Brett Stewart. And I would always say, I don't have an opinion because I believe in innocent until proven guilty. After the court case, then I will have an opinion. And, that ended up with, like, it being a scam and Brett Stewart was completely innocent and all that kind of stuff. And, like, this is where these rugby league players have to hold themselves to a higher standard, because even after that, those same people basically didn't believe. They still believe Brett Stewart was guilty. And he was actually found not guilty. It was a big scam kind of thing. Like, so this is highly disappointing. I know these guys are young men. They have impetuous outcomes, but he's given up an average $360,000 a year salary to play for one of the prides of the competition, who just go terribly in the halves, which is a pivotal role. And
he's been found guilty as well, John.
Yeah.
So you sort of go, like, is that not grounds to just sack him on the spot?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to.
So
Brett Stewart was found not guilty. NRL stepped in, suspended him for 4 weeks. At the time, in my opinion, unfairly. Jack DeBellin was charged and they suspended him for 2 years. I can't remember the outcome of that. I think it was a mistrial and...
but in the end, he wasn't convicted.
Yeah, he came back.
Yeah.
Amone has been stood down from all club activities until further notice.
Would have thought you just sack on the spot.
Sack him and he can't be rehired. I'm sorry for the guy, like Amone, but that's what it comes down to. You are a player who has a great opportunity, young person who has a great opportunity to participate in a sport that can give you everything.
Yeah.
And you made this massive mistake.
You got to pay a penalty.
You got to go pay a penalty, and then when you're finished, you can Matt Lodge it back in. When you finish paying your penalty. Danny Wicks went to jail, came back. I'm all for forgiveness. He has to pay the penalty first. And
sorry, I know it's a different realm, John. I know it's a completely different realm. I'm not comparing the two by any means. But Bronson Cherry, 4 year drug ban. He's coming back with the Bulldogs. He's done his time. He's coming back.
And I forgive him because he's done his time.
He's done his time, and he's getting another shot at it. And good luck to it.
And like I said, as a Dragons fan, I really wish they would just let him go and finish it. Their statement is a non-statement that says he's been stood down for club activities. Doesn't tell you whether he's still going to get paid. I don't know what the sentences could be. Maybe it'll be community service, and then of course they'll let him play.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they done that maybe just to buy themselves time to work through it. I don't know. But who knows?
That's the kind of ones I would expect the NRL. The NRL has that no-fault stand-down rule, which I think is completely unfair. in which if a player is involved in an incident in which they get charged, that can result in, I think, 10 years charge. They're automatically suspended.
That's the thing. It's a charge. It's not. They've not been found guilty.
Entirely unfair, and then you end up with people like Jack DeBella.
Yeah, and he didn't play for 2 years or something.
2 years.
2 years he missed. 2 years. That's 2 years where he sort of probably got out of shape a bit. 2 years of not playing. 2 years of not playing representative football.
2 years the Dragons had to pay. Well, not had to, but paid his salary.
They paid his salary, and so look at the impact that had, John.
Went from a state of origin player to playing for PNG.
You've got to go by what the court system is there for a reason. You've got to go by what it. In the end, he was acquitted, and we've got to take that at face value.
From the beginning, hated like I said, with the Brett Stewart thing. I didn't believe Brett Stewart should be suspended. Yes, these guys have to hold themselves to a higher standard and try and stay out of trouble and things like that, so they don't bring the game into disrepute and blah 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 whatever. But we have a court system where people get charged, and then the charges go away. Like Josh Reynolds is another one. You know, Josh Reynolds he's a great guy, amazing player. He had a whole bunch of issues with his ex-partner, and there was backlash against him saying, they should suspend him and stuff, and it all ends up being nothing. And luckily for Josh Reynolds, that's something that he isn't tarred with for the rest of his life. It can be, but the fact is, Amon has been found guilty.
Yes.
So he has to go do his legal punishment.
Yes.
That the New South Wales courts will determine when he's finished. Then, if he's actually shows any contrition.
He's been found guilty. All that needs to happen now from that point of view is the sentencing.
Yeah, so he should be getting the sack and then come back later when he's served his time and we'll forgive him.
Yeah, come back later when all the dust settles and you're a new man, a reformed man, back from the brink, all that sort of thing. So, but at the moment, he needs to... Yeah, he needs to face up to the law now. He needs to face the music, and that will come when he's sentenced, John.
And of course, it sucks that it has to be the Dragons. I'm sure
I'm sorry about that.
All Bulldogs fans are sitting there going, at least it's not the Bulldogs. But the Tigers aren't. The Tigers aren't, because the Tigers have got something even worse.
Yeah, well, John, West Tigers teenager Massi Tavui he's been charged with murder, of all things, John. The 19-year-old was charged by Liverpool police on Tuesday afternoon over the death of underworld figure Dejan Radulovic earlier in the year, John. Tavui came through the West Tigers juniors, played Harold Matts and SG ball for them, John. Radulovic was killed on July 29 after he was allegedly shot and stabbed on Donnelly Street in Balmain following an altercation with two men. Yeah, well, this is unlike in the other case we were talking about, John, there was a guilty verdict. This one is just a charge. So he's entitled to his day in court. And we probably shouldn't say too much more about that one.
The NRL would issue no faults. They would issue their stand-down policy.
Yeah,
which again I think is unfair.
Yeah, he is. We should stress just Harold Matthews and SG Ball is not a top-level player. So
if he was, they would. But that's so. Not speaking particularly about him.
Yeah.
But if he was an NRL player, the NRL would issue the stand-down, which again I think is unfair because a player has just been charged. It could end up that he is found innocent, and the court case will go for a long time, be delayed and everything, and he'd miss 2 years of his life.
Yeah.
If he is found guilty, if he pleads guilty, of course, then, all right, you're done. Serve your time.
Yeah, but like everybody else, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. That's the legal system we have in Australia.
What a horrifying day for Rugby League yesterday was.
Yeah, it was just extraordinary, John, and it was maybe 1 or 2 podcasts ago you were saying, not much is happening in Rugby League. There's not much time goes by without something happening, John.
Yeah, so we go from rules changes up to murder.
Yeah. Slow news day yesterday, John. Not a lot happened, eh?
Unbelievable. So this is a very... As you said, we can't really comment on the actual thing. It's also alleged, it's a charge. But what we can comment on is the NRL's...
How they handle it at this stage of the process.
In the hypothetical of what if it was an NRL player. And I don't care what the charge is, to be honest. If any player is charged and the police determine and the courts determine that he's not a danger to society and he's out on bail and gets to defend, I believe he should be allowed to play. I honestly, I don't care what the charge is.
I agree. I agree with you.
I don't know how other people, I don't know how the fans feel. I haven't read the threads on this on the social media and stuff. But that's just...
Because no matter what the crime, a charge is just a charge. Yeah. A verdict has not been reached yet.
Sometimes police will charge just so they can give themselves time to investigate, and then will drop charges later. And that's an issue that happens in society, where a charge can paint you with this negative thing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That gets dropped.
Yeah.
There's been so many occurrences of them. I said with Brett Stewart, even after he was found completely innocent, not guilty, absolutely nothing to do with him, it had everything to do with the other party. I had people who had no interest in rugby. They have never watched a rugby league in their game in their life, refusing to accept it. And that is why, I think the NRL needs to stand for the players as well as part of the, as part of the way they work. And these things like standing the players down, like standing Jack de Belin down, suspending Brett Stewart and stuff like that, that's just the NRL promoting to non-fans that, we stand with you. You're right. These people are bad people. That's what they're basically saying. Not innocent until proven guilty. Guilty until proven innocent. We have to get them out of the game until, sorry, they're innocent. They can play again now.
This young man shouldn't be prejudged, John. He's entitled to his day in court.
Exactly. That's what society is.
He's entitled to... to be allowed to follow the due process here, and he's entitled to innocence until guilt is proven, like everybody else, John.
And if he's proven, if it was an NRL player and is proven innocent, he would have missed 2 years of his life, and he would be playing for PNG.
Yeah.
Instead, that's Jack de Belin reference again. Not everyone. I'm not saying criminals all get to go play for PNG. I was saying Jack de Belin was a state of origin player that missed 2 years of his career, and the careers aren't long, They have to set themselves up for time outside their career, and things like their representative, being picked for representative squads help them set themselves up for later careers and things like that.
Yeah, so these things need to be factored into the equation, John.
Yeah. Is that all there is for NRL? Or has something happened? I should set news alerts up because God knows what.
You'd be getting a lot of news alerts.
What's the next step up from murder? I don't know. Where can it go?
I don't know where you go from there, John.
Yeah, is it going to be like an NRL player to proclaim himself king of the world? So we can go to the AFL trade tracker now.
Do you want me to run you through?
Trade period is over and the final draft pick order is in. So if you go through the trades, then we can go through a quick summary of the draft picks.
No worries, John. There's a few to get through, that have happened since we were last.
It's always the flurry at the end.
Yes. So Jack Billings, he's got an opportunity at Melbourne here, John. So Melbourne receives Jack Billings, of course. St Kilda receives a future third-round pick tied to Melbourne. Richmond bring in Jacob Kazitsky. Richmond receives Jacob Kazitsky. Hawthorn receives pick 49. Elijah Hollands joins his brother at Carlton. Carlton receives Elijah Hollands, pick 28. Future fourth-round pick tied to Gold Coast. Gold Coast receives pick 26. Future third-round pick tied to Essendon. Okay, I go on, John. Power finally get Asafa Ratchagalea. Port Adelaide receives Asafa Ratchagalea. Geelong receives pick 25, pick 76, pick 94. Jordan Sweet moves to Port Adelaide for opportunity. Port Adelaide receives Jordan Sweet. Western Bulldogs receives future third-round pick. Hawthorn snare Jack Ginnivan from Collingwood. There you go, John. That's a big one.
That is.
Hawthorn receives Jack Ginnivan, pick 39, future second-round pick, future fourth-round pick, both tied to Collingwood. Collingwood receives pick 33, future second-round pick, future third-round pick, both tied to Hawthorn. I continue. Ivan Soldo gets to Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide receives Ivan Soldo, pick 50. Richmond, pick 41, pick 49. Future second-round pick tied to Fremantle. Future fourth-round pick tied to Port Adelaide. Nick Caulfield and Patty Dow traded in four-way in 4-club deal. So there you go, John. Here's the breakdown.
I like those ones.
Yeah. It's a bit for me to get through here, John. St Kilda receives Paddy Dow, pick 40, future third-round pick, tied to Carlton. Western Bulldogs receives Nick Caulfield, pick 52, pick 56. Carlton receives future third-round pick, tied to Essendon. Future fourth-round pick, tied to Western Bulldogs. Future fourth-round pick, tied to Fremantle. Essendon receives pick 35, future fourth-round pick, tied to Carlton. I continue on, John. Liam Henry traded to St Kilda from Fremantle. St Kilda receives Liam Henry, future fourth, tied to Fremantle. Fremantle receives future second, tied to St Kilda. Future fourth, tied to St Kilda. Okay, Lockie Schultz joins Collingwood from Fremantle, John. Collingwood receives Lockie Schultz. Fremantle receives pick 34, future first, tied to Collingwood. Begoa New Ion traded to North Melbourne from Richmond. North Melbourne receives Begoa New Ion. Richmond receives pick 65. West Coast add Hawthorn's Tyler Brockman to young list. I think we already had that Tyler Brockman one last time we were here, John, so I've finally got through all of those. And so I'll just go, there's a couple of free agency additions, John. Here we go. So, actually, no, there's no more new ones of that. So there we go, John. I finally got through all that.
Yes.
There are some tongue twisters in there.
That's always happens in the AFL, right? Like last 2 days of trade period, we've got to smash everything out and finalise all those things. I really love watching on the internet people's super trades where they try and get a trade that affects every single club.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just because they want to. Like, it'll never happen, but they want to get like an 18-club super trade.
Yeah. I'll just make sure. I'm sure that we went through that Brockman one. Yeah, that was October 14, John. So we would have touched on that in our last podcast.
The final draft order is in. I would have to say that North Melbourne obviously has the best draft outcome.
Yeah.
So Adelaide has 10, 14, 20 and 89. Brisbane 30, 39, 51, 54, 56, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go through them all. But with the outcome of the draft orders, you'd have to say, so Gold Coast has quite a lot of draft picks, but they are much later.
Yeah.
Western Bulldogs the same. Strangely, Port Adelaide only ended up with one. So Port Adelaide hasn't been really big in the movement market. It'd be interesting after. So November, as I said before, November 22nd is the draft day. End of the draft day. So I think our podcast after, what's November 22nd, is a Wednesday. So our Thursday, November 23rd podcast will probably be a lot of emphasis on outcomes of the trade and draft. But
from Port Adelaide's point of view, John, maybe they're happy with the list they've got, and maybe they think that they can just, improve their players from within. You don't always have to bring players in. You can back yourself to improve the players you've got there. So maybe that's how Port Adelaide are viewing it.
Well, we've talked about it before. So Port Adelaide, AFL, you can create a more bigger example of sustained success through your draft picks and stuff like that. Port Adelaide ended up third. They're probably of the opinion that we've got what we want and this is what we want, and we've already set up, we've already built for the next few years anyway, so don't need to move. Whereas someone like North Melbourne needs to do something. Like the Gold Coast, I've mentioned every single week basically when we talk about AFL. Gold Coast have never made the finals. They have a stack of draft picks that they've organised, they've gotten, but they're all very late, and it's. We're not going to see very much improvement, even off the top of my head, before we get to the end of draft season. We're not going to see much improvement in Gold Coast next year, and that's another one of those teams that I don't know what they're doing actually in the AFL. Like they're kind of like North Melbourne. Like if they were gone, it wouldn't make a difference. And you could see based on their player movement right now, we won't know until the end, as I keep saying, but. Based on their player movement right now, I can't see any improvement from them next year. It's kind of disappointing that they should get their North Melbourne leg up.
We have.
They shouldn't get the North Melbourne.
Yes, we made our positions clear on that, haven't we, John?
Yeah,
You can't.
Exactly.
manufacture a competition. If you want success, you've got to earn it. It can't be spoon-fed to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, AFL, there probably won't be much happening in the next few weeks until that November 22nd deadline when the draft is done. And it will be an interesting time to see where we think each team will end up next year after that. Because, some of obviously the draft is a bunch of mostly young, up-and-coming players that all have potential, but sometimes end up being nothing, as opposed to players that they have gained that are established players through free agency and trades and stuff like that. It will be interesting to see where we go from here next year. Collingwood, at this point in time, from what I've seen, looks like they could probably get a repeat.
I hope you're right, John. I really hope you're right.
But the Swans have also recruited very strategically, so I think the Swans are on their up and up.
Yeah, they're never down for long, the Swans, are they? Always in the mix, John.
They've only ended up with 5 draft picks at 12, 45, 55 and 91. That was 4. But I think they did some good movement in their early trades and things like that anyway for players. Yeah. AFL's very dead in the off-season. There's the AFLW currently going on, but sorry to say I don't follow that at all. It's just because I can't follow it. It's too much sport.
You're allowed. You don't have to follow it, John. You're allowed to not follow it if you don't want it.
That's too much sport for me.
You don't have to apologise for that.
It's way too much sport for me.
Yeah.
I wish I had time to follow more sport. Someone's doing some construction next door. UFC 294 is on Sunday in Abu Dhabi. The main card starts at 5.
Abu Dhabi? I can't remember it ever being on in Abu Dhabi.
It was
before,
during COVID when the UFC wanted to get pay-per-views up and running again. They created... It's absolutely typical Dana White marketing. He said, we created an island. What they actually did was they put a cage in a stadium up in Abu Dhabi in Yas Island. Yeah. So they've run quite a few events there. Last time Islam Makhachev defended his title, Islam Makhachev versus Alex Volkanovski is the headliner. Last time Islam defended his title was against Alex Volkanovski. He was obviously supposed to be defending it against Charles Oliveira, but he was out due to that cut. So Islam is currently 24-1. Alex Volkanovski, I've got that wrong. I think it's 23-2. Last time they met, Islam won. I discussed it. It was controversial. Alex Volkanovski won the fight. Islam won the MMA match. He worked better at. Alex Volkanovski is also coming off 11 days notice surgery and a family holiday. I don't know what he was thinking to take the hardest fight of his career. He was on a 22-fight win streak before he lost, in lower grades and up to UFC, before he lost to Islam Makhachev. Hardest fight of his career he's ever had in his entire life. And he's like, 11 days notice, I can do it. Okay, then. One of the things about this fight is their previous one was in Perth, and the Australian Athletic Commission is really, really strict about weight cutting, which is good. I've discussed my opinions on weight cutting before, sanctioned cheating. So Islam didn't get as long as he will in Saudi Arabia to recover from his weight cut. He's going to have an extra 10 hours to get his weight back.
Yeah.
And that may make a massive difference. I think Alex Volkanovski can get it and Australia will be happy. But it's going to be harder than last time. Last time he had a full camp. He wasn't injured, hadn't had surgery, wasn't coming off a holiday. Islam wasn't able to get as a longer weight cut recovery. Yeah, it's going to be a cracker of a match. But the main card starts at 5 a.m. and the Volkanovski fight should be at around 7:30.
Yeah.
But on the rest of the
Sorry, did you mention before, are you going to get it on pay-per-view, John?
100%.
Yeah.
Not a chance I'll miss it.
Yeah.
I'll be waking up at 5 a.m. It won't be one where I wake up and go, I'll watch it later as well. I'll definitely be watching this live. Because the card is really good. So on there as well, the other two main fights you can discuss is the Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. So Kamaru Usman was previously the welterweight champion. A lot of people say he's the greatest welterweight of all time, although George St. Pierre is still the greatest of all time. So people who say Usman is the greatest of all time are crazy. The thing with Kamaru Usman, though, is this is his first middleweight fight. Khamzat Chimaev fluctuates between weight and wants to become a champion. He's currently 12-0. So he's undefeated.
Yep.
The thing about Khamzat is he takes every single person down. 100. He's got a takedown in every single one of his fights. In his last fight, he took Kevin Holland down in September and just beat the absolute crap out of him. But Kamaru Usman has the best takedown defense ever in the history of the UFC. He's only ever been taken down once. So it would be really, really interesting to see how Khamzat actually survives on the feet against Usman, who is absolutely phenomenal on his feet. So Usman lost his championship. Is really like famously he was beating Leon Edwards, absolutely dominating him for 5 rounds. And the commentators, Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, were saying like Leon has lost this he'll never get a title shot again. They were writing his funeral notice. And John Anik said something like this amazing line where he said, like, you know, that is not the cloth from which he is cut. And then 1 second later, Leon Edwards head kicked Kamaru Usman and knocked him out flat and won the championship. Like 10 seconds to go.
Yeah, right, wow.
And he said it's a great Octagon interview. I absolutely love it. He says the line, "Boom, headshot dead." And that's what it was. It was a great head kick. It was phenomenal. And Kamaru Usman went back and tried to fight again, and then it was a decision, and Leon Edwards won. But Leon Edwards is actually the guy that took Kamaru Usman down.
Right.
The 1 takedown. So a really, really, really interesting fight. Khamzat Chimaev is like the boogeyman. Everyone's afraid to fight him. He hasn't fought since September last year. Usman hasn't fought since the Leon Edwards fight. 2 guys coming off a long break, but it's going to be a cracker. If anyone can beat Khamzat, it's definitely Kamaru Usman. 100%. And if whoever wins this fight gets a title shot.
Yeah, right, well.
So they'll fight the winner of Alex Pereira and Jiri Prochazka. So that's another really, really good fight to watch. And then the other one, the third last fight on the card is Magomed Ankalaev against Johnny Walker.
It's not the same Johnny Walker who sells alcohol.
No, but he's just as crazy as a drunk person. Johnny Walker is like an entertaining thing to watch. He actually was like on a tear, one of those guys that was like young up and comer, gonna go push for the light heavyweight championship. And he used to, whenever he won a fight, he'd do the worm in the ring. And after one of his fights, he did the worm and dislocated his shoulder. And then had to take time off. Now, Ankalaev, he actually fought for the light heavyweight title against Jan Blachowicz, who was the previous light heavyweight title holder, to a draw. So everybody expects Ankalaev to get this. He's paying about like $1.20 and Johnny Walker's paying $4.
I've paid a lot more for Johnny Walker in the past than $4.
So Kamaru Usman and Khamzat Chimaev, sorry, they get to fight not Jiri and Jan, sorry. Alex, this is whoever wins this fight. If Magomed wins, he will fight Jiri versus Pereira. Who's the welterweight champion? Not sure, Strickland. I can't remember anyway off the top of my head. So, but both of these fights, the Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker, he's a madman. Check him out. He's like, it's so funny. It's serious. It's like he's drunk all the time. Whoever wins that fight will get to fight for the title. And whoever wins the Usman and Chimaev fight will fight for the title. So it's like great fights to watch. And then on the lower card, there's also a whole bunch of the Dagestanis and Russians and stuff fighting there, and they're always an entertaining WrestleFest. So if you don't like groundwork, don't watch the UFC. But Volkanovski versus Islam is one of the best fights of the year, and I really hope Volkanovski can get it, honestly.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, so...
Sounds like a big card, John.
It is. It's the biggest card of the year until November when John Jones and Stipe Miocic fight. The A-League is starting this week.
Yes. You've listed the games here, John.
Yeah, there's not much to say as yet because you don't know what form.
You haven't seen anything.
So Sydney FC won the Australia Cup. Obviously, they beat Brisbane Roar. So in theory, they're the 2 teams.
Technically, that's Australia's version of the FA Cup, although not anywhere near it by standard, but in format, that's what it is.
Melbourne City's the defending champions. So this week, starting from Friday, you've got Adelaide United versus Central Coast Mariners. Macarthur versus Brisbane Roar is Saturday, which Brisbane should get. I'm just working on getting the odds up on SmartB, actually, for anybody interested. They're not there today, but they will be by the end of the week. Melbourne City versus Western United is Saturday. Sydney FC versus Melbourne Victory is Saturday. Western Sydney Warriors versus Wellington Phoenix is Sunday. And
Wanderers,
Western Sydney Wanderers, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Perth Glory versus Newcastle Jets is on Sunday as well. This will be opening round. I think we'll have a lot more to discuss after the opening round.
Yeah.
It's not really a So, like, the A-League is really, to me, from my peripheral, I pay attention to it. I don't watch a lot of games. I've been to a few A-League games. It's really, really, like I said...
I'll be honest, John, I've never been to a game, but yeah.
I think I discussed, like, a few weeks ago, soccer, for me, is really hard to watch on television because I prefer a game where something happens. But when you go to the grounds, it's one of the best experiences you'll ever have. Like, I went to A-League, Sydney FC versus Western Sydney Wanderers. Phenomenal. Like, absolutely amazing. The crowd really brings football to life. And I'm gonna be going to some games this year as well. So normally I pay attention to it on the periphery. My team is Sydney FC. Hopefully they can win. They've got the most titles. They have historically been the best team. But we might get through the year a soccer guest on to go into more detail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think their big issue, John, I think I might have mentioned it previously, is just they're just lacking those superstars at the moment. They're lacking a Dwight York, they're lacking an Alessandro Del Piero at the moment.
What the A-League kind of tends to be to the rest of the world is that compared to the NRL, the Super League used to be. It was the retirement village, and that's what gave it a lot of notice. Actually, you would get overseas superstars come.
To me, I didn't mind the Usain Bolt experiment, John. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind that. It's got to embrace. Even if it is a Usain Bolt who comes from another sport, it needs these gimmicks. It needs these big names. It needs publicity.
Yeah, because if you look at I was looking at a news article about it. The EPL is more watched in Australia than the A-League. Okay, and the EPL is on at terrible times, but more people are willing to watch it.
And you can't blame them, John.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to see whatever the sport, you want to see it played at the highest level. The EPL is the highest level of soccer / football. For those of you who might get upset with me for calling it soccer. But obviously the A-League is not, John.
Yeah, I know a lot of soccer football fans who pay a lot of attention to a lot of minor leagues. You know, seriously, I know guys who follow Brasilia Series A League and stuff like that. And then they pay attention to the A-League on the periphery. That's not their major concentration. And until the A-League gets some of those, goes back to getting some of those gimmicky retirement village type players, big massive superstars that can come over and they can pay them $1 million or whatever to come over. The A-League pays them part of their salary or whatever. They're not gonna grow that much. And the Australian men's soccer team, furthest they've ever made it, I think we discussed it before. They've never won a match in the group of 16 in the World Cup. So it's never going to be a massive watch in Australia until they get some big characters that can grow the game.
I mean, to be fair, until relatively recently, the Australian team couldn't make the World Cup. So, so the fact that they've been making it, pretty much every time it's on now, Australia are in it, John. So, as you say, the next step is to win a round of 16 game and then we'll take it from there.
We'll keep updating on the A-League. As I said, Sydney FC is my team. Might see me wearing a Sydney FC.
I'm going to be honest, John. I don't have a team. I don't have much of an interest in it, but I will. It's on, and I will. Pay some attention to it and do some research on it.
Prefer a game where something happens.
That's
the best, the greatest and best thing I ever heard soccer. I always loved the Simpsons reference for soccer, but when Modern Family did that, it's the Colombia versus Holland episode or whatever, where
the one where they're just passing it around?
That's the Simpsons one, right? So in the Modern Family...
Oh, sorry.
Colombia versus Holland and the...
The
Spanish, the Colombian wife is arguing with a Dutch guy in a pub, and then Al Bundy's character comes over and says, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to buy you a beer, you go sit over there, we'll go sit over there, and everyone will enjoy the game except me, because I prefer a game where something happens. It's the perfect description of soccer on television. I cannot stress enough, soccer is amazing live.
Because you get the atmosphere. That's the thing. On the television, you don't get the atmosphere, so...
It's in my order of atmosphere from games, I would go. The best atmosphere I ever had was that Matildas match in the whatever it was semi-finals, whatever they made it to. The second best was that India versus Australia World Cup semi-final. That was crazy, and that was again Indian crowd. Dragons at the Dragons versus Tigers in the prelim. I've never seen anything like that when the Dragons beat the Tigers to get into the grand final. And then the Western Sydney Warriors versus Sydney FC. Yeah. And that was in a year where neither of them were doing well either. Yeah. Like, it was the crowd that made it worth it.
I remember, I don't know how I remember this, John. I remember a number of years ago reading a column by Craig Foster, the former Socceroo, where he said something along the lines of, a lot of critics of soccer, football, will say, we need to see more goals. There's not enough goals. And Foster's argument was, his counter-argument to that was, no, but if you have more goals, then it devalues the significance of a goal. But my extra counter to what Foster said at that time, John, is the problem is, though, that it's either a goal or nothing happens. It's one extreme or the other. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no... And so if there's nothing happens outside the goals, if you get a game with no goals, it's not entertaining for the viewer, John.
So soccer. I always say about soccer is a game of almosts, where everyone gets really excited when something almost happens. Yeah. Like, they almost get a goal. Yeah. They almost kick that perfect kick. They almost kick that perfect through ball. Like, they get so excited by it. And then when something actually does happen, they basically blow their load.
Yeah, but I think that's why it's fallen by the wayside in this country, John, and rugby union has fallen by the wayside as well for sort of similar, in a lot of ways,
nothing really happens in rugby union either, because they just kick penalties all the time. Yeah. 20 points in one game is penalties.
It just feels to me, John, like you've got 4 football codes in Australia, right? In the last 20 years, John, it feels to me like the AFL and the NRL have just put so much distance between themselves and soccer and rugby union in this country.
And A-League isn't on free to air, right? I don't think it is.
No, I think it's on like Paramount or something now.
We should get that information.
But I just think there's just so much of a gap between the AFL and the NRL.
Yeah, Paramount
and soccer and rugby union now, John.
Any sport that is only on one of the streaming services, only on the streaming service, will never achieve much. They need to get into those free tiers, even if it is for a minimal amount to get into the free tiers. And I like Paramount Plus, like that's really like picking getting to the end of the vine there. Like I've got a KO and then ESPN and then Stan and then Paramount Plus. I'm getting pretty far down there.
Yeah. It's disappearing from our eyes, John.
As mortgage rates go up, Paramount Plus is the first one to cancel.
It's not exactly at the top of your list when there's a cost of living crisis.
So we'll see how the A-League goes. Hopefully Sydney FC can do well.
Yeah,
so they won the Australia Cup.
I do have some other news.
Other news before our social media comments?
Yes,
I love the social media comments.
Here's one for you, John. 5 sports will be added to the 2028 LA Olympic Games. Baseball/softball, cricket of all things, flag football, lacrosse and squash. Yes, cricket will be in the Olympics, John. There will be men's and women's teams in the 2020 format. Cricket has been included on the Olympics program for the first time in more than 120 years, John. That pretty much guarantees it'll be also on the program for the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane. Cricket's only previous appearance at a Summer Olympics was in the 1900 Games in Paris. There were only 2 nations in that tournament, Great Britain and France, with Great Britain winning the gold medal. John, no surprises there. As I understand it, John, the top 6 ranked teams qualify, but the US gets automatic qualification as the host nation. Yeah. So it's really the top 5 that qualify. Australia wouldn't want to be ranked 6th and have the USA take their spot in the event, John.
They better. It's 2020. I wonder what the 2020 rankings are right now.
Yeah, let's have a look at it. Why not?
T20 rankings. So it is. England is number 2. India, of course, is number 1.
So if we were
Australia
to
is sitting 5th.
If we were to freeze it here, I presume this is the men's rankings you're looking at. Yeah, so India number 1, England number 2, New Zealand number 3, Pakistan number 4, Australia number 5. A line gets drawn under that, John. The USA are team number 6. So that's no good for South Africa, the West Indies, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh there, John.
So they're really going to want to play more games because, like I said before, it's all about the matches you play, right?
Yeah.
Because it's points driven. So India has played 59 matches for 15,000 points compared to Australia's 32 for 7,900 points.
Yeah.
So I would expect leading up to the Olympics, a lot of nations are going to be playing a lot of T20 cricket.
Yeah.
And probably playing against lower tier nations. Australia should go out and play 87th ranked Croatia, 86th ranked Greece, 85th ranked Samoa.
Don't be surprised if you see Australia playing a lot of T20s against those teams in about 2027 or so. There, John.
That's so cool. Cricket back in the Olympics, and it's good. I guess it's good because it's the 2020 format. Like you don't want to see really it's only 6 teams though. When is the Olympics?
Oh, so that's the 2028 LA Games.
But our one, the next one is next year.
2024 Paris, so it won't be in for that, but it will be in for LA.
But I think breakdancing is in the 2024.
Is it really?
I think
That'll be
so.
interesting.
I'm sure there was some talk about breakdancing getting.
Hey, if you're going to have equestrian in the Olympics, John, I don't have a problem if you have breakdancing or cricket.
Man, I really like the shooting. That's what I like to watch because it doesn't.
I can see you liking the shooting, John. I don't know why.
It's nothing to do with athleticism. It's just you could seriously have a 300-pound dude shooting. It's fine. And I reckon shooting shouldn't be gender separated either. It's because they separate by gender just because it's a matter of tradition. But the women's shoot is awesome.
Well, that's something where you probably wouldn't need to separate by gender.
I'd love to see it, and I always watch the judo and the wrestling, of course, in the Olympics. So next year we're going to have a lot of Olympics talk.
Awesome.
And so
looking forward to that. I do have another one here for you, John.
I love the other news.
I've got some NFL news, sort of, for you, John. Kansas City Chiefs player Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift have now made their relationship official.
Aww.
They were seen together at a Saturday Night Live after party. They made separate appearances on that show. Swift has attended 3 of Kelce's games over the last month. Kelce, John, he's won 2 Super Bowls, one of them earlier this year in 2023. The other in 2020. I had to get that in there, John, to make this seem like a sports story.
Yeah, absolutely. Taylor Swift gets a lot of comments when we post on social media. So when I chuck that short up, it's good. It's good. As I said last time, people complain because there's a lot of TV coverage about Taylor Swift, but it gets eyes to your sport.
Great for the NFL, John.
I love one of the things that went around on the internet was women playing a joke on their partners. Talking about how Taylor Swift made him famous. Yeah. Because he was previously famous.
Yeah.
He's amongst NFL fans and stuff like that. And so you go check it out. It's so funny where they'll be like, yeah, but I'd never heard of him before he started dating Taylor Swift. And the guy goes, what are you talking about? He's won 2 Super Bowls! He's an All-American!
Yeah. It's I'm sorry, but in Australia we know who Taylor Swift is, okay? We wouldn't have known who Travis Kelce was if he wasn't dating Taylor Swift. Yeah, That's just the way it is.
That's what it does. It gets eyes to you from around the world. And there was a period of time where the NFL was actually the highest ranked crowd attendance ball sport in the world. Everyone always goes soccer, and I always have to explain to them how averages work.
Because those TV ratings for the Super Bowl, John, it's just insane.
The cost of advertising. And if the Chiefs were to make the Super Bowl and Taylor Swift's still dating him, Travis Kelce, that would automatically make the ratings even higher, and it would automatically make the cost of advertising. The NFL is sitting there laughing.
Yeah. So, John, we hope that Taylor and Travis get married, have a long and happy life together.
No, I need her to marry a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu superstar. Taylor, I'm not available, but I can find you someone who is. Come and watch all these local competitions in BJJ. So, you want to get to some social media comments? I love the social media.
Yes.
And this is one of my favourite ones ever because I did post. So SmartB posted a short of us talking about Killer Bean commenting Where's Wallace last time.
Yeah.
Yes, I know Nelson Asafa-Solomona knocked him out, but Malal Ford on that YouTube video commented Where's Wallace? String. As if Nelson Asafa-Solomona said it. Now, if you watch The Wire, greatest comment ever. I laughed out loud so much. Because there was a character in the Wire named Wallace who was murdered by Stringer Bell, played by what's that guy? The dude that was in the Fast and the Furious.
God, sure.
Man. he was in the Idris Elba.
Yeah, right.
So Idris Elba's character Stringer Bell murdered Wallace and D'Angelo Barksdale. Just went, where's Wallace, String? Where's Wallace, huh? That was great. So beautiful. Then Vicente Source Doe 6943 on the YouTube video about Logan Paul and KSI, where I was complaining about having purchased it, said it wasn't a smart purchase, but a funny one. 100%. No matter how many times I say I'm never going to buy this crap again, I would definitely buy it again.
This was the one where Donald Trump and Snoop Dogg were commentating.
But one of the things, Ebony Bridges, the Australian champion, that's boxer.
Yeah.
She's the one that turns up to weigh-ins in her lingerie and stuff like that. She said, I think rightly so, I totally agree with her, that's not boxing. What you're watching there is not boxing, and people need to separate it.
Yeah.
This is a circus. This is a clown show. What boxers do is boxing, and there needs to be a separation of this, and people need to actually understand the separation of this. She's 100% right, and it's really changed my attitude on it. So now I like MMA, boxing, and fight circuses. So thanks. And then finally, we got another douchebag. Milan Lemaic on Facebook, the Facebook Latrell video said, Latrell and SmartB are all a bunch of effing wankers. Thanks for the views, bro. Thanks for the views. Keep watching. There was a SmartB social media manager commented back. Thanks for the views. Hope you like the videos. So thanks for the views, Milan.
Yes.
I'll post this video of us making fun of you. Hopefully get thousands of views. That's all for this week. A lot of stuff happening over the weekend. More cricket, more rugby union, A-League starting, UFC. It never stops. There's also a netball championship on right now.
There's a lot going on,
Sport
John.
never stops. And we do have the Melbourne Cup coming up in November. And we've got a special guest coming to give us a Melbourne Cup preview because me and Dan have no idea at all.
This is true, John.
So he's going to, after the, so they announced the field. I'm getting the names. He said to me, they announced the field.
Yep. So that'll be the 24-horse field, I'm pretty sure, for
on
Melbourne
Saturday. So Sunday we'll be recording a special session
Yep.
where he'll give his tips and he'll also explain betting
We'll
to
just
us.
have to get that big sort of lift out in the paper, John, with all the horses and the jockey and everything. That
Explain
comes
what
out.
all of this stuff means.
So that'll be in the paper on Sunday, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking through that pretty closely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for this week. See you all on Monday with a breakdown of where Australia sits in the World Cup. See if we're happy with Australia or not.
Thanks, John.
Dan.
See you Monday.
See you, man.